Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I've been away for quite a while, but I'm back now. A lot of things have been happening in the Rams off-season, that's for sure. But I missed all you guys. I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. If you are on Twitter, you can follow me at Real LA Rams Talk, on Instagram, LA Rams Talk. So subscribe. Welcome to the show if you haven't been here before. If you are a Rams Talk faithful, then good to see you. Anyways, got a lot to cover today. I'm kind of going to do quick shots on all the different topics that have happened since the beginning of the off season, but I'm going to start it with this, the whole COVID-19 thing. So a lot of people are operating assuming that the NFL season is for sure going to happen. I have reservations on this. I don't live in the States anymore. I live in Europe and kind of have been on the front lines of this. Didn't take it seriously. Then I did before the States was. And so I don't underestimate this at all anymore, this impact on society. So the NBA season's gone. The baseball season very well could be wiped out. And the football season, which is going to start in about 4 months or so, that's in jeopardy too, because you can have flare-ups in the fall or winter, and mass gatherings are kind of the last thing that health officials want, or that even makes sense. So trust me, I've got kids, and schools are little mini mass gatherings, and I don't see that happening until at least August. So who knows what's going on, but I'd say right now it's 50-50 that the season starts on time. And I'd say that there's even probability that the season gets delayed and doesn't happen at all. But we are operating under the assumption that it is. Also, we're taking a look back right now, so whatevs. And then a couple things I want to also mention is, since this is going to be an overarching episode of multiple topics, I'm going to have other episodes where I focus on and key in on other individual topics, drill down into them. So please let me know what you want me to talk about in more detail, more depth. I'd be happy to do that. Also thinking about doing a live stream this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, I'm not quite sure, but if that's something you guys are interested in, just let me know in the comments. And it'd be really great to catch up with everyone in the live stream and really talk some Rams football and take our mind off of all this crazy stuff that's happening out there. So those are just a couple of things to think about. But I'm going to start off at the beginning of this of the off season, really, and it all started with the dismissal of Wade Phillips, John Fossil leaving, Skip Pete leaving. So everyone's thinking, who are they going to hire? Who are the coordinators going to be? So they bring in Brandin Staley from the Broncos for defensive coordinator. They bring in Kevin O'Connell from the Redskins to be their offensive coordinator, which is a new position for the Rams. Actually, they didn't have one last year, maybe the year before. No, last year. And then John Bonamego for the special teams coordinator. And I can dive into the coaching changes in another episode if you guys want me to. But I think right now it's all unknown, right? I mean, we can sit here and go, well, they're all young. Well, Sean McVay was young. You can look at what they've done in the past and get an indication of what they're going to do in the future. I think some of the free agent pickups and acquisitions point to more or less what their scheme is. But also I feel more their salary cap is really indicating kind of what they're able to do and what they're not able to do. So a lot of questions with the coaching staff. Ted Rath is no longer here as a strength and conditioning guru. So that'll be interesting. We won't have a hype cheerleader, Sean McVay, assistant on the sideline. But we'll see. We'll see what these guys bring to the table. Hard to really say. I mean, we can only talk about what we think they're going to do via the personnel acquisitions that they've had so far. And speaking of the personnel acquisitions, let's just dive right into it. So there are a couple different groupings that I'm going to go through here. One is the free agents, and I'm going to include the release of Nicole Roby-Coleman in there, and then the other group is the trade and the release. Todd, Gurley, Brandin, Cooks. I feel like those are two separate deals. So coming into the offseason, you're thinking, they have limited cap space. What are they going to do? And they let Corey Littleton leave. They let Michael Brockers leave at first. Greg Zuerlein they let leave, and Dante Fowler. and then they cut Nickel Roby-Coleman. I like Nickel a lot. I get it from a financial standpoint, especially if they have depth waiting in the wings to potentially take over. The Dante Fowler, letting him walk, no problem at all with that. I wasn't really emotionally attached to Fowler, although that hit in the Saints game in the playoffs, that's huge. So I always love Dante for that, but I feel like we can live without him. The losing Corey Littleton was kind of has been difficult to take, especially when you kind of wrap your head around all the bad contracts they signed and all the dead money they have, when that money could have been spent to keep Corey Littleton. I think that their inside linebacker and their linebacking position, tons of question marks there. We'll get into that in a second. Corey Littleton, not only was he a tackling machine, not only was he great in coverage, but he was amazing at forcing turnovers and being a playmaker. And that's what I'm going to miss the most about Corey Littleton. But I'm happy that I got paid. I just wish the Rams were a little smarter financially, so they would have been able to keep him. And so losing Greg Zuerlein, also kind of a tough one, considering that he didn't get paid a whole hell of a lot from the Cowboys. But I think that they feel maybe his back issue is a real issue. He didn't have a great year last year, but I mean, he had a great 2 years before that. So it's kind of, there are a lot. I mean, Jared Goff had a pretty crappy year last year. Are we just shipping him out the door? Havenstein had a down year. There are a lot of guys who have down years. You don't just cut them loose unless you could think you can get someone as good for cheaper. And the two signings they just had, who knows, right? I mean, I felt good every time Zuerlein went out there. I felt that, especially from long distance, I felt that he would make it. So last year was kind of tough, but what are you going to do? And Brockers, I wasn't shocked to see him go. I was shocked to see him come back, especially after A'Shawn Robinson, Leonard, Floyd. I didn't really understand after A'Shawn Robinson why they brought Brockers back, especially with Sebastian Joseph Day, Greg Gaines waiting in the wings there. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I feel like the only way that does make sense is that if you're looking at the NFC West and you see the 49ers and the Seahawks, two teams that are top 5 in running the ball, now you have a very solid running defense. A'Shawn, Gaines, Day, even Donald to that degree. Leonard, Floyd is better as a run edge defender than a pass edge defender. Then you have Micah Kaiser in the middle there. So, I mean, I feel that maybe they see the NFC West and how maybe that even is more consistency, right? Maybe stopping the run in the West is really how you're going to be more consistent on offense. I'm not quite sure, especially if you're not getting pressure on the quarterback. Maybe having Troy Hill and Jalen Ramsey means that you can buy an extra half second or second in getting to the getting to the quarterback. But I don't really feel like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the whole Brockers thing was a curveball, but I feel like they overbid on Leonard Floyd. I mean, he didn't really have a great year last year, and they spent just over 10 mil on Leonard Floyd. Seems kind of like a reach to me on someone who's not your typical pass rusher. But I mean, he worked with Brandin Staley in Chicago, so maybe he knows how to unlock Leonard Floyd. But I'd say out of all the signings, that's probably my least favorite one. Even though A'Shawn Robinson is a little redundant on the D-line, I feel like with his contract and his performance actually from 2 years ago on the Lions, it makes a little more sense. But I would trade Leonard Floyd or A'Shawn Robinson in a second to have Corey Littleton based on the money. So that's just me. So I'd love to dive into that a little bit more in further detail on another episode. So let me know what you want to talk about in terms of the acquisitions, especially on in the defense. Now, in terms of Todd Gurley and Brandin Cooks. Now, Gurley was my favorite player on the Rams since he came into the league. You go back to the St. Louis days, and man, those were tough times in terms of having a skilled player that you felt excited about, right? I mean, Tavon Austin was a guy you wanted to, but he didn't do much. His impact was minimal. But Todd Gurley, when he came in, you're like, wow, now we finally have that guy. and he was amazing. I had him in fantasy ever since he was a rookie, kept him in keeper league, so he's kind of been like my baby. Best player in the league in 2017 and arguably 2018. So, you really, I think it's hard to see that come to an end. And it's hard to see how that all played out. I mean, obviously he's not healthy because you look back in retrospect and you look at everything Sean McVay said, and I feel like had Todd Gurley been fully healthy, that they would use him. Like they would just run him into the ground. But they felt like maybe he wasn't, and maybe he really wasn't. I don't know. That's one of the big mysteries in the football world is what was the deal with Todd Gurley? And hopefully one day someone writes a book and it's a tell-all and you get to find out all about it. But there are things like, why did Pete Carroll pass the ball instead of run it with Marshawn, or why was Butler benched in the Super Bowl? There are all these questions that they're not coming out. So I'm just really curious to understand what the deal is with that. But I guess from a financial standpoint, it made sense to cut ties with them, even though they'd be biting the bullet more in 2020 rather than 2021. Same with Brandin Cooks. And I think the Brandin Cooks thing to me is, and the Todd Gurley thing to me is what everyone already knows is, and this is probably the most critical takeaway of everything this offseason, is I hope the front office learned. Yes, they have to bite the bullet. Yes, that impacted signing. Like if they had just let Gurley play on his rookie deal and waited to sign him to an extension and had no money on the books, and if they had let Brandin Cooks play out and franchise him last year, and then he can walk with no money in the books, that's 30 plus 30 million that they would have had to spend in free agency this year. They could have kept Corey Littleton and signed the guys they signed, and or maybe upgrade an offensive lineman. So, I mean, those are moves that didn't have to be made and were made. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they didn't just lock Le'Veon Bell up. They're like, dude, sit out a whole year. We are not paying you that much money. Because look at what happens when you do, especially 2 years early with Todd Gurley. So I feel like it's infuriating because you're like, you guys are front office money men contract guys. How can... You're in football. You know how this works. Why did you do that? You just shot yourself in the foot. And so I think that's the takeaway. Now, with at least with Brandin Cooks, and also one last thing on Gurley. That's why Darrell Henderson, that's why they moved up to draft him last year. Because they knew. Because we thought, Darrell Henderson's just a dynamic playmaker. Can't have too many of those. It's just a good compliment because Todd Gurley missed some games the year before. But really, I mean, you look back and it makes so much sense why they got Darrell Henderson, because Todd Gurley was not going to stick around. They were drafting a replacement. I still think they're going to go grab another running back. I would not like to see it early in the draft, though. Maybe later in the draft. I think they have other glaring holes. As for Brandin Cooks, I think you look at his production last year, and it tailed off dramatically. And I think it was two things. It was the concussions along with the emergence of Higbee. So he missed a couple games with concussions, and he was also concussed in 2 other games. So it was kind of like a 4-game deal. But also, end of the season, he was a ghost. And Cooper Kupp even was a little bit too. And it's because a lot of those targets were going to Higbee. So when you look at the concussion history, when you look at, even though I thought they were going to keep Brandin Cooks for 1 more year and then get rid of him next year when the cap hit and the dead money was lower. But if you can get a 2nd-round pick, 57 overall, bite the bullet. And I mean, even if the season doesn't start, even if the season isn't played out, then 2020 and all this dead money and dead cap doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. So you got to rip off the Band-Aid. At least they admitted they were wrong with a couple things. But I mean, it's crazy. You trade a 1st-round pick for Brandin Cooks, and then you trade him for a 2nd-round pick. It's just kind of nuts. I like Brandin Cooks too. So it's just tough because the team that we knew from 2017, 2018, 2019 is gone. That team is gone. This is a completely different deal. Completely different personnel. So, but at least they got a 2nd-rounder for Cooks. So I'm happy about that because, this is what they have to do. They have to hit on these draft picks. They have to. Just like last year and the year before, they got to hit on those draft picks because, otherwise they're toast. And I'll tell you what, the Seahawks the last couple of years, no one thought the Seahawks would be any good when they basically shed Richard Sherman, the safety, the guy he's on the Ravens now, and Earl Thomas. A lot of their guys, a lot of their personnel changed, and we thought, they're going to be crappy. But in the NFL, all it takes is the offensive line to have a rebound year. All it takes is Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown to hold it down. All it takes is the defense, being being more consistent, and the Rams can make the playoffs. I don't feel like this is end of the world at all. Anything can happen in the NFL, right? Who would have thought the Niners would have played in the Super Bowl last year? I knew they were talented, but come on. So I think anything can happen. That's another thing I want to talk about is the offensive line. I haven't really touched on that much. But they have, 9 guys for 5 spots? Whitworth, Noteboom, Evans, Edwards, Corbett, Havenstein, Blythe, Allen. Or maybe that's 8. I'm missing someone. Anyway, I think they've got 9, but they've got so many guys, and you don't really know what you have. I would say that you have Whitworth, and you have Blythe, and you have Havenstein penciled in as starters. The others, that's up for grabs. Yeah, so you have Noteboom, Allen, Evans, Edwards, Corbett. So 8. So you have 5 guys to go into 2 spots. I feel personally and so who knows, this is, I think, the theme of the 2020 Rams is who's stepping up. So we need at least 2 guys on the offensive line to step up out of those 4 that I mentioned. I don't think Allen makes the final cut for the roster. I think they probably draft a center. I wouldn't mind grabbing one in one of the second round picks because Blythe is good and Blythe can play that position. I think he will over Allen if it comes to that. But, Allen was very shaky, and I just don't think maybe he's cut out for it. But I hope he is. So anyways, that's going to be a very interesting battle to watch, see how they upgrade. Everyone wants them to upgrade the offensive line, but they have 8 dudes who are the ones that are – they have to have at least a solid 5 out of those 8. Noteboom, I'm not sure, is going to be ready for the season. They need to find a replacement for Witt. So, there's a lot going on with the offensive line. I'd like to talk about that in more detail in another episode, so let me know. But that's another big question. But guys stepping up, like I said, that's the theme. So you have offensive line guys that need to step up, dudes that have virtually they have very low amount of reps in the NFL, whether it's Evans, Edwards, Corbett, Noteboom, Allen. Those are 5 guys that are still kind of unknowns, right? You have Darrell Henderson. Who is he really in the NFL? He missed a lot of time with injuries last year. Hopefully he can pick up pass protection. So, that's an unknown. The running game, right? Then you have on the defense, guys that have to step up. Obo, Micah Kaiser. John Johnson's coming back. You have Rapp. You have Jalen Ramsey. But then you have Troy Hill stepping up. He's played a lot, but still, what is a full year of Troy Hill? You have Gaines, Sebastian Day. You have I feel like I'm spacing on a lot of other guys that they have drafted, but I feel there are just so many younger guys that, what are they, the kickers. So the Rams are really depending on Traven Howard. So the Rams are really depending on a lot of younger guys that they've drafted in the last couple of years that haven't had many reps, that have to step up and be full-time starters with an impact. That's a lot to ask. David Long, that's another guy. So, they've got him penciled in at the slot. So, is that really going to work out? Is he going to get burned? What happens if David Long doesn't work out? Or what happens if Micah Kaiser gets injured again? What happens with the depth? So that's going at like 2 years ago, you're like, okay, we got all these guys. These are proven guys. Maybe we have 1 or 2 rookies or 1 or 2 second-year guys. But no, that's not the case now. Now it's all about the youngsters stepping up. And then we have the draft class to supplement that. And one last thing I'm going to talk about, the trade of letting Cooks go, trading him really means that the Rams are going to be flexible in terms of their scheme. I mean, 2 years ago, they were primarily 11 personnel. And then last year they got more 12 personnel. I think they liked it. They were very successful with that, having 2 tight ends on the field. And with the emergence of Higbee, you can have him and Munt or him and Gerald Everett. And then maybe that supplements for the, you have Kupp and Woods, and then you have Everett and Higbee in there. And I think that'll play very well. So yeah, I think that's the trade of Cooks was also indicative of getting a pick, getting rid of money, and also realizing that with Cooks, Kupp, Woods, Higbee, Everett, Henderson, there just aren't enough targets for all the guys. So that's something I can talk about as well. So there's a lot going on. Then we have the draft, 57th pick, 52nd pick, 80-something pick, 104, 126. I feel center. I feel edge rusher. I feel linebacker, and maybe running back and wide receiver. I feel like those are the main one. They don't need a guard. They could use a tackle that could be a replacement for Whitworth, depending on Evans, Edwards, Noteboom, how they pan out. I'm sure they'd like to go internally on that. So this will be interesting. I mean, what we've learned from the past is that Les Snead will make 8 trades on draft day, and they'll end up with guys that we had no idea. I mean, like they drafted John Franklin Myers. I think it was the first pick we had in one of the drafts, or second pick, and he's already gone, and no one even knew who he was. So we'll probably take someone from Appalachian State, Brian Quick III, and yeah. But anyways, that's a lot. We're up at over 22 minutes on this one. Covered a lot of topics, but let me know what you'd like to hear about, what we can go in depth on. It's good to be back. It's good to be thinking Rams, talking Rams. And I miss all you, so hit me up in the comments and hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. The Instagram's still in its fledgling state. Try to make little quick bites on Instagram for people, but ideally in a couple of weeks I can get everything up and running and make it more coherent. So anyways, good to see you. Stay safe, stay healthy. And I haven't even talked about the logo and the colors. Quick take, colors great. Second take, logo Ram, great. Logo LA with horn, just it seems very sterile to me. It doesn't make me think of Chargers. I like having the Ram horn. I feel like just having that spiral image is awesome, but it just seems very like almost too clean and sterile. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm just kind of like, and I think we're just gonna get to a place where we're all like, So hopefully the uniforms are awesome. Like it's hard to mess up the colors, but anyways, let me know what you think about the logo. I have a feeling most of you hate it, just depending on what I've seen on Twitter. So anyways, stay safe, miss you guys, and as always, go Rams.